My daddy uses Anchor to publish his podcast, and he loves it. Not only can he record, edit, and distribute on this platform, but he can make money at the same time, all for free. If you too would like to get started on your own podcast, go to the website anchor.fm or download the free Anchor app. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Let's go!
Welcome to another episode of the Third Eye Podcast, the podcast that is dedicated to open dialogue regarding the difficult topics that we all face in life. I am your host, Marcus Callahan, and thank you very much for joining me this evening. Welcome back to another episode of the Third Eye Podcast. It has been a wild couple of weeks. My family and I just recently moved into a new home, so I took a week off to help my wife get our new home in order. So thank you all for your patience. I do appreciate it. Last week, I had my very first guest on, and although the audio didn't come out the way that I wanted it to, I felt that the content was very pure and genuine, and I'm happy with that. I do apologize, though, for the poor sound quality. I'm still trying to find a better way of recording guests remotely, so bear with me, please. I promise you, it will get better. This move was probably one of the most stressful moves that I have ever been a part of, and for a few reasons. The main one being that we're renting this home from my father-in-law, who currently has an estranged relationship with my wife. So awkward. But furthermore, this move really has my wife and I considering a change in school for our kids. And it's a completely new area for us, so we don't quite know where anything is yet. The house we moved into isn't completely finished being renovated. Just some minor details that still need to be taken care of, but still, and it's just been very stressful. The one thing that has made this move enjoyable, though, was having my parents drive 3 hours in to help us move. And I didn't even ask, they just did it. So it really got me thinking and reflecting on all of the times in my life where my parents came through for me, oftentimes without me asking, and especially in my adult life. So this episode is a way for me to pay homage to not only my parents, but parents all over the world. The sacrifices that are made daily on behalf of our kids are rarely recognized. So this episode is a giant thank you letter. When I think back on my childhood, I can't help but smile because my parents did everything within their power to make sure I had a great life. My mother was a homemaker. She was the one that I could always turn to when I needed to get things done for school, or if I needed to go and get clothes or shoes. She took me to all of my doctor's appointments. She always made sure I had a home-cooked meal to eat every night. And whenever I needed to talk to her, she was always available. One of my favorite things about my mother, though, is that she has a hard time hearing. And wait, just hear me out before you demonize me. But when I was growing up, myself and my cousins would always try to get her attention. And we'd often end up having to scream her name really loud. And every time, without fail, she would look up at us like she didn't know why we were screaming, and it always made us laugh. My mother has always had a kind heart, and I love her dearly. My father. Where do I begin about my father? Well, I guess let me start by saying he's my hero. And I know that may seem a little cliche, but it's true for me. My father and I haven't always had the best relationship. Growing up, my father was never around because he was always working, sometimes 2 or 3 jobs, or he was taking care of adult business that I didn't understand at the time. I've never told this to anyone other than my wife, but I was so upset with him for most of my adolescence because he wasn't around when I wanted him to be. Don't get me wrong, when I needed him, he was always there. But as a child, I didn't see it that way because I couldn't discern my needs from my wants. So I rebelled as much as I could, and I missed out on what could have been a great father-son relationship during my teen years. All I ever really wanted was for him to be around, and I didn't know it at the time, but that's all that he wanted as well. I know that now because I have children of my own, and I often am always at work or taking care of adult business, and all that I want is to be home with them. Dad, I am sorry that it took me so long to understand where you were coming from, but I do now. You know, my favorite character in the whole world is Batman. And I'm pretty sure it's because he's so similar to my father. They both are the strong, silent type. They both spend all of their time protecting other people. They both have a no bullshit attitude and a rock hard determination to get the job done by any means necessary. My father even saved my life once, literally. It's my most favorite and cherished memory of him. We were staying at my uncle's cabin with my cousins, and we had rented some ATVs, and everyone was riding them and having an overall grand time. I was young at the time, maybe 12, 13, so I couldn't ride by myself, or at least I shouldn't have been riding by myself, and my father knew that. So it was no surprise that he forced me to wear a helmet. At the time, I was pissed because no one else had to wear a helmet, and here I was looking like a baby with my dad forcing me to wear protective gear. The nerve of him, right? Ah, that ride that I took right after putting that helmet on, though, ended up in disaster. I came around a bend going faster than I should have been going, and my wheel jerked, and I hit a log, and I flew right off the ATV. And when I got up, took my helmet off, I could see that there was a huge gash in it. And I would more than likely be dead right now if my father didn't make me wear that helmet. I don't know what or who it was that gave him the inclination to put that helmet on me, but I'm glad he did. And in case I never told you, thank you for saving my life, Dad. All right. Earlier this week, I asked for people to send me a voice message or a written message describing their favorite moments with their parents. So let's take a moment to hear from some of them. The first one comes from a good friend of mine named Jordan Kelsey. He writes, "My favorite memory of my parents is the day I told them I was going to be a father. I think my mom cried for days, and my dad was on cloud nine. They both knew I wanted to be a father, and they both knew I was a good man to raise a kid. They also knew me having a kid meant I had accomplished my greatest step in the process of completing my greatest goal." Thank you, Jordan, for sharing that with me, and I can relate, man. I remember telling my parents that I was going to be a father, and instead of getting scolded like I thought I would, they both were extremely supportive. And for the record, I think you are one hell of a man and a father, and you are an inspiration to me. So thank you for participating in this. Our next entry is a voice message from the one and only Shamsuddin, aka Din the Aubrey. Let's take a listen.
Hey, it's your boy Mr. Dean, aka Dean the Aubrey, and my favorite moment from childhood with my parents, or specifically moments, was always going to Blockbuster, renting movies and video games and all that good stuff. Back when Blockbuster existed. Yeah, I know I'm telling my age, aren't
Yeah, man. Those were the days. I remember going to Blockbuster with you guys when I was staying the night, and it was always a blast, man. It's crazy to think that, my kids don't even know what a blockbuster is. Oh man, thank you for your submission, Sham. Our next submission comes from my cousin Shanta. She writes, "My name is Shanta from Vegas. I think back and can't help but smile. I had an amazing childhood. I was fortunate to have both my mom and dad, as well as an aunt and uncle in the same household for the first 15 years of my life. Lots of love, laughs, and countless memories. Some of my favorite times spent as a family were the vacations. They were never fancy, never too far or extraordinary, simple, yet unforgettable. So many camping trips to all of the neighboring states, trips to the beach, visits to family in California, Florida, Michigan, always a function at our house or visiting with family friends, celebrating holidays or just because celebrations. Birthday parties, so many birthday parties. Always in the company of genuine people. So much laughter, especially when the adults would get together to play cards and talk shit. Collectively, I remember my parents and aunt and uncle being people that others could rely on. So giving and generous. We often had family or friends live with us until they were able to venture on their own. Individually, some of my favorite memories include with my Auntie B, always fun and smiling and singing. She was often the homemaker and stayed at home watching over us kids. My favorite times with her were spent doing my hair. She would spend hours on end to make sure I looked good. My Uncle Alvin, always so patient and willing to teach. My favorite memory is him teaching me to drive. He drove me to the outskirts of the city near the golf course where he worked. There weren't any other cars around, so I could drive freely. Although I was nervous, his calming demeanor helped me to relax. I got behind the wheel and began to drive. It almost felt natural. I did pretty well, and he made sure to acknowledge my natural skill. My awesome driving record is partly due to his encouragement and guidance. My mom, she fights for her kids, and even though she's tiny, she ain't scared of confrontation. Even with all that fight in her, she isn't great at showing tough love. I remember us kids starting a food fight during dinner, and boy did we get in trouble. My dad punished us to bed with only bread and water. I think it was supposed to be for a couple of days, but my mom would sneak us food whenever she could. My dad. I'm a daddy's girl, so I have tons and tons of memories with my dad. But if I had to pick the best memory, it'd be all the recent memories that we make. As a kid, I often thought he was too tough or too mean. As an adult, I get to see the softer side of my dad. I love that we can get together and have a few drinks, cook and eat and talk bullshit with each other. I love to see him laughing and enjoying life because he worked damn hard to provide a good life for his family, and he deserves to have a good time. The best time I have with my dad is spent listening to him tell stories of his childhood. He's full of wisdom and always willing to share his knowledge. All his life experiences makes him a great storyteller. And his laugh is so infectious. I cherish our 2-hour phone calls where we vent or laugh about all the dumb shit going on. There's so much more that could be said, but best of all, he keeps our little family together, and I couldn't have asked for a better dad. Thank you for your submission, Shanta. Our childhood was indeed awesome, and so many memories to look back on, and so many things to recreate with our kids. So thank you very much for participating. I do appreciate it. Our last submission comes from my wife. Take a listen.
Hi, my name's Amanda, and I'm here to talk to you about my favorite memory of my mom, Veronica. It's really hard to just pick one because all I have are memories and memories full of nothing but great times together. But I think one of my favorite has to be my 18th birthday. And the reason why is because I feel like that's the moment that I realized that there was an evolution to our relationship as mother and daughter. We'd kind of gotten past most of the, teenage fights and arguments. And, it was such an amazing night. She thinks it's embarrassing, and she embarrassed me, but it was one of my most cherished nights. And it just happens to be with her. It was so much fun.
Thank you very much, babe, for your submission. I absolutely love the relationship you and your mom have with each other. And I often say you two should have your own show. And I mean that sincerely. Okay, I can't end this episode without talking about my experience as a parent. I became a parent at the age of 21, and for the past 9 years, my kids have been my greatest accomplishment. Parenting is the most rewarding thing I've ever done, but it's also the hardest thing I've ever done. I'm constantly second-guessing myself on the decisions that I make for them. I can be a wreck sometimes, but I wouldn't trade this experience for anything else in the world. Malachi, Maurice, and Aveline, Daddy loves you more than life itself. And I pledge to you that I will do everything within my power to provide you with a great life, as my parents once did for me. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Third Eye Podcast. This one was very special to me. Thank you to those who participated as well. I couldn't have done this without you. Next week, I will be back, and I will be discussing mind versus body. Please share and subscribe, and go follow my Instagram and Twitter. Both are at third_I_podcast. I love you all, and remember, love and be kind to one another. Take care.